What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to J. Cool.
The U.S. plugging of the line of support towards the health sector immediately of our people. The Americans provide support to a tune of about $600 million annually towards specific areas of intervention in the health sector. One of them being HIV, maternal and child care, and of course TB-related, and these diseases that are in Zambia, at least among the ones that eschew devastatingly so, taking the lives of our people. We also have malaria and so on. But the statistics inform us that we have about 1.3 of our people that are living with HIV and are captured and are dependent on ARVs. Just that one singular decision puts 1.3 people at risk in terms of their lives. So this is a disaster for our country, and therefore it cannot be casually discussed as if it's a political move among politicians. This has to do with the lives of the people. Do we have hope of government having mitigation measures around this? The answer is no, because this government is broke. Is government on top of things, as the minister was trying to talk about? The answer is no. The American ambassador said from late 2021, just after these colleagues got into government, they noticed. So it can never be said to be historical, because the ambassador was very categorical. It is late 2021, just after our colleagues got into government. Our suspicion could be that maybe there were opportunistic elements that were already gunning to take advantage of this sector, and the money is provided for their personal benefit. Because how is it that the pilfering and the theft and the corruption in this sector immediately was introduced and noticed in 2021, just after our colleagues got into government? And the lead flag was raised, according to ambassador, engaged the different stakeholders, including government, that I think from the assessment and from the signals they're getting and the support that they're providing is not going to the intended people. Instead, it is finding itself in private entities and private pockets. And it's not a one-day issue. Obviously, the fact that this is support, it is support because of identifying that there could be areas of vulnerability as a country in this sector, which support is coming purely out of the benevolence of the people to be able to save lives. How is it that such a decision will be made to stop that support? Is because the noble intention to which this support was supposed to come has, particularly in the last 3 to 4 years. So the Minister of Health can't come and say we're on top of things, because if they were on top of things, we would not have reached this far. Okay, from 2021, Mr. Luchi, there has been a number of scandals around the Minister of Health. I remember having a conversation with you around some kind of a contract that had to do with about $100 million to do with some facilities that needed to be put up. One of the contractors, or somebody that was involved in the bidding process, did disclose with evidence that there was solicitation and even commitment of high-ranking officials in the UPND government that needed vehicles, that needed a certain amount of money moved here and there. Was there any action taken? The answer is no.
Is it a bigger sign of a weakness by the government in terms of something that they put front and center when they came into office, which is fighting corruption? Is this a sign that maybe we've been a bit relaxed?
You see, the trouble is that our friends in the UPND campaigned consistently based on propaganda. I think there must have been somebody who saw this philosophy that to get into government, just thrash before the Zambian people every rhetoric from enticed to vote for you. You don't really have to measure what you're promising around what is practicable. So they succeeded using lies and deceit and all these fantastic promises to get into government. But that's one thing. But when you get into government, you have to now, actualize the promises that you made. The choice, which was supposed to have been a very simple choice for them to make, and admit that, having never been in government, at least for the president, now that he has got into government, he has found that the reality in government is different from what he imagined would be the case. So that the Zambian people pardoned him of his promises and give him, some kind of a leeway to be able to work with what he has found, to work with the bureaucracies of government and be able to systems of government. But instead, he continued being pushed on the trajectory of trying to still make himself look like he knows what he's doing, and more promises and more promises. So instead, because of the desire to look good in the eyes of Zambians through rhetoric, the rot within government, which manifested at the stage, they couldn't admit and deal with it. So because the effort was more on the path of propaganda. Had Mr. Nakachinda immediately got into government and the ugly manifestation, the Minister of Health, started showing up, and he put his foot down, dealt with it decisively, we will not be where we are today. So you are right to say that UPND has never been committed in a fight against corruption. What they have been committed to is to try and create and manufacture through their propaganda cases against the previous regime, because as far as they're concerned, if we blame PF so much, people will look at us from a positive point of view. So we've seen that a number of PF leaders, those who are in government, have been arrested. And when you examine some of the cases under which have been charged, they don't even make sense. Of course, some of them we can't discuss in detail because they're in court, but when you look at the indictment, you look at the evidence and everything, that this is politically motivated. You can never have a genuine fight against corruption that only focuses on what you think your friends did. The real fight against corruption when you get into government, that will really be genuine, is the one that deals with the happenings at a particular time that we're in office. Those that are easy, because all you need is to look at what people did when they were in government. But real complicated corruption is the one that is happening at the time that we're in government, because it's record time, and you must be committed to check the system, to check how things are being done. How is it that we can have, for example, a challenge in the agriculture sector, in the sense that we had enough stocks that would last us at least 2-3 years, that even if we had drought, we would not have the excuse, quote unquote, of saying that we haven't produced and therefore there's no food, because we had something reasonable decided to sell, export, some of which went to countries like Tanzania and other places. A year later, because also the procurement system and the chain of supply for inputs and so on was also destabilized because of politics. Certain individuals or companies that were traditionally for many years and decades been in that business were labeled PF, and therefore contracts were terminated and so on, recklessly without thinking of the consequences. So we ended up with the first year of UPN, the first season of UPN being in government, a disaster in terms of production. Second year, a disaster in terms of production. Then hit by these factors that they are referred to as an excuse, and we have ended up a hungry. So I can only say, Mr. Lucci, is that it's a sum total of exposure, that lack of experience in government, and inclination towards politicking outside the very precious virtues that each and every citizen must have, especially those who offer themselves for public service as politicians. The virtue of patriotism, love for your country, to a point where if you are ushered into office, we should never get into these offices and start what you do to benefit or to promote yourself. It should be on when you get into office, what is it that I can do for the issues which deal with the livelihood of our people. And I think it's a very sad development.
I agree with you. In fact, so one of the things I remember before 2021 or during that period leading up to the election, speaking to those of you who were in PF, I remember some of you used to say, some of your colleagues used to say that, listen, there is corruption, yes, but that corruption isn't being by leadership, officials of, or like high senior ranking ministers, etc., etc., but that there is corruption within the civil service. In a way, you could make the argument that that is the case even today, that there is corruption, it's within the civil service, but there's not much that's being done. I mean, it's not like when you were in government as a party, what you did in terms of trying to figure out where are these loopholes within the civil service. Similar story today. It doesn't feel like there's a lot that's being done in terms of trying to figure out where those loopholes are. So how do we go forward when it clearly looks like there are officials that may not be party members, but that people that work in the civil service are the ones who are responsible for some of the leakages and the pilferage that's happening?
That's basically agreeing with me. In the sense that the so-called fight against corruption has been politicized. We use it to weaponize the citizenry against one group of or set of politicians, because the ones who are in government, and to that effect, if we talk about corruption, we want to name prominent politicians and try and see if we can use the judicial system to get to dent them, and so on and so forth. You are right that it's the entire system that needs overhaul. The starting point is, are we able to change the narrative and the policy position as politicians? So this thing is not seen from a partisan point of view, but as a problem that we should accept, that maybe it has gotten embedded within the systems. My sister, Rora Miti, wrote something, I think you saw it circulating, where she was saying, okay, it's not just the drugs that have been stolen. You can go even to simple things like just or indeed the main campus, where to get a room, you have to pay hefty amounts of money.
And it doesn't just end there. I mean, look at CDF.
Yes. Yeah.
You see council officials giving questionable answers, and you start wondering, but wait, what is the issue in this country?
So in this, because of lack of patriotism, somehow even the nobility of people offering themselves for public office is no longer there. The justing for position and to become whether president, MP.
Thanks for tuning in to JQ News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates on tech, politics, and everything in between. Until next time, stay cool.